Hey everybody, so last night I saw Us, directed by Jordan Peele, starring Lupita Nyong'o, Winston Duke, Elizabeth Moss, Tim Heidecker, Shahadi Wright Joseph, and Evan Alex. And let me say this off the bat, this is one of the best thriller slash suspense films I have ever seen. I wouldn't go so far as to call this a horror movie. There are horror elements to it, there are horror aspects, there are horror things that happen in this movie, but I think it is works much better as a suspense thriller in the way that Get Out did in 2017. To start this review off, I think the directing is superb. Every shot is stylized, it's intriguing, and it pulls the audience in. This film, it allows the directing in this movie, the way it's shot, builds into the suspense and the tenseness that the audience feels when they're watching this movie. And for me, it works, and that's where a lot of the scares, a lot of the horror, a lot of what makes you jump in your seat, it comes from. There are no jump scares in this movie. There isn't a single one. It's all world building and suspense driven that makes you jump out of your seat when you see this movie. The script is smartly written. Every moment is tense, but it's always, I don't want to say undercut by a joke, but in a way it is. This movie, it's surprisingly comedic, a lot funnier than I thought it would be. And every time something horror or tense happens, somebody comes up with a joke and it never feels out of place. It all feels fluid. It all feels natural. It's just wonderfully written across the board. I don't have a single problem with the way this movie is written. The line delivery, everything is great from this movie. The story, it's tight, very tight in my opinion, but it unravels in a few parts where the logic just kind of loses itself, especially with the twist. Some things add up, some things don't add up, but that's just me. That's me arguing semantics like I always do. But the movie, it doesn't just kind of plop this twist out of nowhere. I'm not going to spoil it. If you want to see this movie, you're going to see this movie, and I'll tell you why you should see it at the end of the film, or at the end of this review. But there are just a few things that unravel, and when you really sit down and think about it, it just doesn't add up. But that's, like I said, that's just me arguing semantics. That the twist, I loved it. The story, I loved it. I literally have no problems with this movie for things like that. But the acting, I literally have nothing to complain about in this movie for the acting. The kids are surprisingly great. Everyone does a good turn as their person in the red jumpsuit. They all do great performances as that. Winston Duke is great, and I'd love to see him in more things where he can really flesh himself out. I've seen him in 3 movies. I've seen him in Black Panther, Infinity War, and this, and I want to see him in more. This guy needs to be in more movies. Tim Heidecker is surprisingly good. He's a good actor. He's a funny guy. I like him, but I didn't expect to like him as much as I did in this movie. He does a great turn in this movie. And Lupita Nyong'o, as always, she's mesmerizing and puts on a great performance. And I'll say it again at the end of the review. You'll hear me say it again how great this was. The music is perfect. I really don't know if I'll ever be able to listen to the song "Good Vibrations" by the Beach Boys again in the same way after having seen this movie. They use the song in the trailer. I got 5 on it in the trailer. It still gives me goosebumps. They use an orchestral version of it in the movie, and it is perfect. It is so good. All the music in this movie, it's original, it's suspenseful, and it's great. And I'd love to hear more of it. This film, it's really not that scary. Like I said, there's not many jump scares. If you're going in this movie, if you're a jump scare lover, you're not going to like it. This is definitely a movie where I can see, and I have seen it, where people are going to walk out of it and say that it sucked, that they hated it. But to me, this movie, it's not terrifying enough where I won't be able to sleep tonight, but it's terrifying enough to have me think a second thought about the world that I live in right now. And once you see the movie, you'll understand why. Conspiracy things like that, it gets to me. But Peele's writing is perfect, his direction is perfect, and it works very well in that sense for the story. It focuses on building tension and atmosphere, which is almost non-existent in modern horror, and that's what sets this movie above the rest for me. The more that I think about it, something in this movie don't make sense in some ways, but the world building, story, characters, script, music, and directing is so perfect it allows me to easily forget those things and lets me fall in love with everything about this film. This movie is easily a 10 out of 10. It's going to end up on my best of the year list in next January, and I hope and pray that the Academy does not forget this movie when it comes time again to nominate movies for Oscars. This movie is legit perfect in my opinion. There are a few semantics that I would argue, some things, some story beats that just don't make sense a little bit, but other than that, this movie is so perfect, and I can't wait to see what Jordan Peele comes out with next. 10 out of 10. I would recommend it to every person I meet. That's how much I love this movie.